Hello everyone, it's 2:12 p.m. It's October 4th, 2020. Uh, Today I'll be working with VM Workstation to show you some virtual machines today. These are virtual machines. Here's my library on the left side here. Um, I'll be going into a CentOS virtual machine today to do some demonstrations with the Bash terminal as I read about the Bash terminal and inform you about the Bash terminal. Um, so, with that being said, I'm just going to let that load up. If you don't know much about virtualization, please feel free to contact me, and so I can get you informed about that and help you configure everything that you need to be able to use virtualization yourself. Um, as I said, I'm a network engineer and technology uh, professional with a cybersecurity specialization. Um, so that's where my education lies. I'm working on becoming a chief information security officer. The program that I am in is NSA and DoD certified. So, yeah. So today we'll be talking about the Bash terminal. This is the Bash terminal here. This is a CentOS operating system here. I'll be practicing with CentOS today. I'm going to go up to the top left corner here and click activities, and I'm going to come down here to the terminal. I'll open up a terminal here. This is the Bash terminal that we'll be talking about today. So if you don't know much about this terminal, or you don't know much about Linux operating systems, that will be some of my objectives today, to inform you more about CentOS and Linux. I'll teach you command line utilities such as ls, which lists things, cd to change directory. This can change directory to any of the things that I just listed above. We can also change the format of the ls command based on options, like ls long listing, which will give you additional information and list them with a different view, as you can see here. You can type clear to clear out of that. So those are just some of the commands that you could do with this terminal window. That's what it's called, a terminal window. The name of the term. This is a Bash terminal window, to inform you about that. So so basically the goal here is we're just gonna teach you how to log in to a Linux system and run simple commands using the shell, and deal with the graphical user interface in the background. That's all. This is graphical user interface, in the background, that we can teach you how to navigate through. So those are just some things that we'll be talking about. Just accessing the command line, using the desktop, and we're going to be using the bash shell. So a command line is basically a text-based interface which can be used to input instructions to a computer system. The Linux command line is provided by a program called the shell. Various options for the shell program have been developed over the years, and different users can be configured to use different shells. So most users, however, just stick with the current default, which the default shell for this operating system here is the Bash shell. It's called GNU, the born again shell. Bash is an approved version of one of the most successful shells used on a Unix-like system, the born-again shell. When the shell is used interactively, it displays a string. When the string is waiting for a command from the user, this is called a shell prompt. When a regular user starts the shell, the default prompt ends with the character, the cache character. Basically, as you see here, you see it's waiting for us to input some letters. So we can write a command. So the money character is replaced by a hashtag character if the shell is running as a super user root. Just makes it more obvious that it is a super user shell, which helps to avoid accidents and mistakes which can affect the whole system. The super user shell prompt is I'll give you an example. If we just switch user and then we type in that command here, and then we enter our password, there is now we are logged in as the administrator. The administrator in Linux is called root, and that money, the dollar character symbol has changed to the hashtag character symbol to indicate to you that you are now an administrator operating. So, using bash to execute commands can be powerful. The bash shell provides a scripting language that can support automation of tasks. The shell has additional capabilities that can simplify or make possible operations that are hard to accomplish efficiently with graphical tools. So some of the basics commands that we can enter, I showed you some commands entered at the shell prompt have like 3 basic parts to it. Is command to run, the options to adjust the behavior of the command. So basically, like the command to run basically means like ls, and then we have the option to adjust the behavior of the command. So like the ls list to list out the files of where I am locally. We have the print working directory command to show you where you are located currently. So, and then you have the argument, and I'll give you an example about that in a bit. The command is the name of the program to run. It may be followed by one or more options which adjust the behavior of the command or what it will do. Options normally start with 1 or 2 dashes, dash A or dash all. For an example, I'll show you that here it's a dash A or a dash all. Those are the 2 examples. It can start with 1 dash or 2 dashes, for example, so you understand the difference of that. To distinguish them from arguments, commands may also be followed by 1 or more arguments, which often indicate a target that the command should operate upon. For example, the command we can use user mod dash l user 01 basically has the command here. You see that's the command, then that's the option here, and then this is the argument. This is the person that we're trying to apply the command to. So this effect of the command is basically to lock the password of user 1, the user account. So yeah. So basically, logging into a local computer to run a shell, you need to log into a computer on a terminal. A terminal is a text-based interface used to enter commands into a print output from a computer system. There are several ways to do this. The computer might have a hardware keyboard and display for input and output directly connected to it. This is a Linux machine's physical console. The physical console supports multiple virtual consoles which can run separate terminals. Each virtual console supports an independent login session. You can switch between them by pressing Ctrl Alt and a function key F1 through F6 at the same time. Most of these virtual consoles run a terminal providing a text login prompt, and if you enter your username and password correctly, you will log on and get the shell prompt. The computer might provide a graphical login prompt on one of the virtual consoles. You can use this login to a graphical environment. The graphical environment also runs on a virtual console. To get the shell prompt, you must start a terminal program in the graphical environment. The shell prompt is provided in the application window of your graphical terminal program. Many system administrators choose not to run a graphical environment on their server. This allows resources which would be used by the graphical environment to be used by the server services instead. If you guys aren't familiar, Red Hat Enterprise Linux is a distribution of Linux that is used a lot with supercomputers. Are If you look at the top supercomputers in the world, they are used by Red Hat, and the operating system on them is Red Hat Enterprise Linux. So it's a graphical, and if the graphical environment is available, the login screen for Red Hat Enterprise Linux will run on the first virtual console called the TTY1. 5 additional text login prompts are available on virtual consoles 2 through 6. If you log in using the graphical login screen, your graphical environment will start on the virtual console that is not currently being used by a login session. Normally, your graphical session will replace the login prompt on the second virtual console, TTY2. However, if that console is used by an active text login session, not just a login prompt, the next free virtual console is used instead. The graphical login screen continues to run on its first virtual console. If you're already logged into a graphical session and log into another user on a graphical login screen, or use the switch user menu item to switch users in the graphical environment without logging out, another graphical environment will be started for that user on the next free virtual console. When you log out of a graphical environment, it will exit and the physical console will automatically switch back to the graphical login screen on the first virtual console. So I know that's a lot of information, but like I said, if you do have any questions, you can email me, contact me through phone, look for my Facebook, look for my Instagram, look for my Microsoft Teams page. You can go there and we can start communicating about all this IT support and IT security that we need to be talking about with each other. So a headless server does not have a keyboard, and it displays a headless server does not have a keyboard and display permanently connected to it. A data center may be filled with many racks of headless servers and not provide each with a keyboard and display, save space and expense to allow administrators to log in. A headless server might have a login prompt provided by a serial console running on a serial port, which is connected to a networked console server for remote access to the serial console. The serial console would normally be used to fix a server if it's on its own network card became misconfigured and logging in over its own network connection became impossible. Most of the time, however, headless servers are accessed by other means over the network. Okay. So logging over the network, basically. Linux users and administrators often need to get shell access to remote system by connecting to it over the network. In modern computing environments, many headless servers are actually virtual machines or are running as public or private cloud instances. These systems are not physical and do not have real hardware consoles. They might not even provide access to their simulated physical console or serial console. In Linux, the most common way to get a shell prompt on a remote system is to use a secure shell SSH. Most Linux systems, including Red Hat Enterprise Linux and Mac operating systems, provide an open SSH command line program SSH for this purpose. An example: a user with a shell prompt on a machine host uses SSH to log into the remote Linux system, remote host as the remote user. So basically, that's the login screen, and that's my account. I'm going to use my password to log in here. So basically what we're talking about right now is we're talking about open SSH. So we can do a system cctl and status of open SSH. So the unit open SSH service could not be found. Basically that's letting us know that the SSH hasn't been downloaded. So what I just did is a DNF command. I'm installing open SSH so to this virtual machine, and as you can see, everything is downloading, and that download has completed. So now if I go back and I run the system status, I still have to run other commands. Now I do have it here. I just have to configure it. And with after doing multiple configurations, you'll have your SSH server operating on this machine, on this OS machine, and it does not have it configured yet. So you'll have to go through a lot of commands to start programming that to be able to SSH, just have an SSH server on this machine to be able to SSH from another machine onto this machine, which I can do another demonstration video about that later. I won't do that today, but SSH is definitely something to understand and know about if you do not know anything about that. So I'll tell you more about SSH. The SSH command encrypts the connection to secure the communication against eavesdropping or hijacking of the passwords and contents. Some systems, such as new cloud instances, do not allow a user to use passwords to log in with SSH for tighter security. An alternative way to authenticate to a remote machine without entering a password is through public key authentication. With this authentication method, users have a special identity file containing a private key, which is equivalent to a password and which they keep secret. Their account on this server is configured with a matching public key, which does not have to be secret. When logging in, users can configure SSH to provide the private key, and if their matching public key is installed in that account or on that remote server, it will log them without asking for a password. A user shell prompt with the machine host how long is this video so far? Okay, I'm gonna cut this video short here. Well,